to the Bay State Banner Art Gallery and Ron Mitchell, who are bringing to you in hard copy and online a special series that highlights local artists in Boston and the greater Boston area. I am your interviewer, Lamerchi Frazier, and it is my delight to welcome you to my studio in AMARP, African American Master Artist in Residency Program in Jamaica Plain. I want to tell you about an artist whose name is Ekua Holmes. We're considering her multi-dimensional, multi-dynamic artwork and performance and her many dimensions as a human being. She is a City of Boston Art Commissioner, Associate Director of the Center for Art and Community Partnerships, Director of Spark, the Art Mobile, that ignites art and design in the neighborhood, and it has been in existence for over 12 years. Ekua, Ekua, Ekua.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Your work is a document of time, memory, nostalgia, described as collage-based, and your subjects made from cut and torn papers that draw you in, investigate family histories, relationship dynamics, childhood impressions, and the power of hope, faith, and self-determination, which is something that we need a lot of right now. Mm-hmm. So it is our delight to have the opportunity to have a unique insight into your artistic practice, your process, the things that are happening in your world, and your celebrated style of art that resonates deeply with us. So I remember reading that you are a child of Roxbury. However, I remember meeting you at your business, which was in your home in Dorchester, as you were representing artists and displaying their work and selling their work. And I remember admiring that you had this business sense, that you were an entrepreneur. As a strong Black woman. That your presence for me meant a lot to how I and others could stand and glean from your example that this is a career, that you had made it into a place of ownership that you claimed for other Black artists to be to expose their work to others. And so with that, where's the line drawn for you with respect to being that businesswoman and the practice of your art for its own rewarding sake?
Well, so let me be honest. You know, when I came out of college, I had a degree in photography, and I really didn't understand the fine art world of photography. So I came out and I did some jobs. I did some stuff for the Bay State Banner. I did some weddings. I did some concerts, and I was just like, this is not going to work for me. So I taught myself graphic design. But what I'm trying to get to is I didn't have self-confidence when I left college. And I didn't have role models when I left college. But I could see that the world needed Black art. It needed art expression. And so that seemed like a position like Playhouse in the Park, that instead of waiting for someone else to do it, it was something that I could do. And I could do it in my home. It's almost in the style of what they call pop-ups today, where I would go into someone's home, take down all their artwork, pictures of the family, and I would make an art gallery there. And it was called the Great Black Art Collection. So early on, Paul Goodnight, James Anderson, Tom Feelings, they were some of the early artists who printed their work in multiples and had it at an affordable price. So that's how that started. And it's taken me years. One day I woke up and I said, I want to do my own artwork. But it wasn't that long ago.
No, it wasn't.
No, but I started by seeing a void, and people were so appreciative. They were so thirsty for these images and felt so proud. You know, it just was very fulfilling.
Yes. I remember you asking me, how should I get started? I'm like, she knows
sure
the
did.
business. aside from her being extremely talented, I was very alarmed at that question, and I was very supportive of you doing your work and sharing your gift with us. So I'm very happy that you did do that. And one of the considerations of looking at the many exhibitions that you've had and looking at your intense ability through the efforts that you did in photography, apparently, that makes your work so compelling is this compositional sense
That's very true.
that you share with us. And in memory, nostalgia, storytelling, fostering a sense of comfort. As we take in your images that you create, this strength is there that you promote. And then at the same time, this vulnerability. Can you speak to that and what you actually see and what you imagine in that sense?
That's a really good question. I don't think I ever thought about my work as showing my own vulnerability. I think of it as a reflection of the family and the community that I grew up in, and shining a light on the sort of what appears to be a mundane moment, but is very magical. And just recently, I'm trying to bring in this idea of magic, because life is magic, right?
Yes, it is.
I think when I look at my family, I use some of my family photos in my work. It's like exploring them. They're all gone now. So I'm looking at these photographs and I'm asking questions about how did they become the person they became, and how can I imagine what they were like as children and that sort of thing. But I think I don't see it as vulnerable. I don't see it as showing vulnerability. But I'm happy to hear you say that, because when I go back home now, I'm going to go look at the work and say, is this showing my vulnerability? You don't see everything about your own work, right?
Right.
But sometimes people will come up and they will read a piece of your work and you're like, my God, I didn't see that myself. Because it's not an intellectual process, it's a soul process too.
Yes, it is. And by vulnerability, I wasn't meaning weakness, but the intentional exposure and reveal, which opens us up to others' eyes. And so that's the sense that is still about strength and it's still about courage. So taking what you responded with to that, I think the perception of your work allows us entry into many possible intimate scenes that we would not be allowed in. So thank you for that. And as we think about what you have done in your work with respect to the role of an illustrator, I know that you recently just participated in a children's literature festival at Framingham State University. And in tandem with your work related to published book art, working with authors and writers to bring forward any of the images that we would normally have access to, and the stories that are being told and reveal, even your recent exhibit at the Museum of Fine Arts of your illustrations and your work with your cousin, Tricia Elam Walker, in her book, gives us another dynamic of this very busy artist.
Yeah, yeah.
And how, in fact, you received a Hornbook Award for your illustrations as you worked with Carol Boston Rutherford on The Voice of Freedom for Fannie Lou Hamer, Spirit of the Civil Rights Movement. From that book, I want to know what did you learn in your journey with her to find your shero, Fannie Lou Hamer, and then another one to find your other shero, Barbara Jordan.
So these book projects are so marvelous because you think you know something about your shero, but in your research for the book, and I know you do a lot of research, there are so many layers. And I'm constantly asking myself, how did this, so in Fannie Lou Hamer's case, she was part of a sharecropping family. She was the youngest of 20 children. She went barely to the 6th grade. But she knew as a child that something was wrong with the system, where she and her family, her 20 brothers and sisters, and her parents went into the fields every day, worked from can C to can, and they didn't have food. But the neighbors right next door worked half as much, and they had a cow, they had milk, they had meat, they had all these things. And so she started exploring at an early age, complaining about it, telling everyone who would listen, why is this happening? So there was something in her spirit, something that she came here to do. And I always say every book is a universe, because every book is different. So Fannie Lou Hamer, Mississippi; Barbara Jordan, Texas; Maureen Betch, Florida. So there's the landscape. That's a big character in a book. There's the time period. That's another character. Like, what do the clothes look like of this era? They don't look like what I'm wearing.
Okay.
So there's all of these layers of wonderful research. So it's a universe, and it's also a university, because while you're working on it, you are learning. And in addition to making the book, now I can have these conversations with people when I say, oh, I just did a book on Fannie Lou Hamer. Do you know who she was? Do you know how many people say no? So many. And I'm able to tell them because I did the research.
Yes.
So it's multifaceted. The illustration is definitely an important part, but the research and the knowledge and the layers of pride and understanding is something that I can carry with me, wherever I go.
Well, that's so wonderful, and what you've made available for us is this: we become more visually literate as we look at the images you create of these women who are also my heroes and
And
heroes.
underrepresented.
And very much.
Their stories haven't been told enough.
So it becomes a part of that landscape that is now so much expanding as we go forward. And with that, this participation that you have in public projects is one of the dynamic parts of what we're able to see that you do, that is more in the vein of the sharing of space and placemaking. And important placemaking in terms of Black artists. And so I just want to reflect on your sunflower project and how enormous, I call it the seeds to plant, seeds to visual art, seeds to performance art, and poetry. And as it penetrates our community, thinking on preservation and conservation of the planet, what work you've done there, but we want to know what inspired you to think of it. How did you come about this project? How long have you been participating with it, and how you see it going forward as a visionary?
Well, it's a project. Roxbury Sunflower Project is near and dear to my heart, and it has a sort of a 3-strand braid of how it got started. One was the Fannie Lou Hamer book. That was my first book project, and I didn't know if I was going to do it because I had never done a book before. But when I read the first page of the manuscript and it said she was born in Sunflower County, Mississippi, I was like, this is my story. Because I had always loved sunflowers, and before that, my granddaughter and I had gone out to this farm to see this 2-acre sunflower field. We wanted to see that with our own eyes, right? We like to go on little adventures and do that. And I thought to myself as I was there, why can't we have that in Roxbury? We have these empty lots. Why can't we grow sunflowers there so that as a child is walking down the street, instead of seeing a lot that's filled with trash and weeds, they come upon this field of sunflowers. And of course it's going to infuse them with joy and happiness, right? So, and then the third strand was a piece of writing that I know you're familiar with, In Search of Our Mother's Gardens by Alice Walker.
Yes.
And she talks about the creative spirit of Black women and where did it go during the years of overt oppression. She said it was still there. She said for some people it drove them crazy, but for others they found channels, and her mother's channel was a garden. She talks about people coming from miles around to see her mother's garden. And then the line that got me was, she said, any shack that we had to live in, my mother filled the holes in the walls with sunflowers. So this sunflower has this, it's a symbolic item for healing, for growth. We have 7 themes. One is planting seeds. Nothing starts without you planting a seed, whether it's an idea or physical something. You have to start, like starting something is a seed. Yes. And then deep roots, deeply rooted in community, which is how I feel about Roxbury. You know, some people say, oh, you never went away, you never moved anywhere. I said, no, because everything I needed was right here. All the mentors I needed, my heroes and sheroes are local. And then thirdly, oh goodness, radiance of the sunflower. It's like a halo. It's the most human-like flower there is because it has a big round face and it has a golden halo and it stands tall and its arms hang down. And then resilience. A sunflower will go 50 feet down in the earth to find water. It's going to survive. And is that not a testament to the Roxbury community? Because, you know, we've had some obstacles and some challenges, but we like Maya Angelou would say, still we rise.
Still we rise.
And then there's beauty and attraction, you know. Beauty, I think it's Theaster Gates that said, beauty is a basic service. And as artists, when you create something, Lamerchi, it's not only meaningful, it's not only soulful and spiritual, but it's beautiful. And so people are drawn to it. And birds and bees are drawn to the sunflower, and that's what allows it to be such a source for renewal. And then there's transformation. Sunflowers are known to draw toxins from the soil. So the sunflower is actually the symbol for nuclear disarmament, because after soil has been damaged by nuclear waste, you can plant a field of sunflowers and it will draw that stuff out, cut it down and burn it, and you return that land to usefulness. So I thought it was a great symbol for Roxbury. And we could use a symbol, like we could, you know, so that's kind of how it started. And it's been 6 years. This past year, 2023, was the 6th year. We planted at the Museum of Fine Arts. We did a sunflower garden there called Radiant Community. We did Seeds of Love and Justice at the Rose Kennedy Greenway. So now other parts of the city are like, hey, we want to be a part of that. And we also want to be connected to Roxbury because people are paying attention to how powerful this community is.
Yes. Well, I applaud your work on the Sunflower Project and the way in which you go about including others in your projects. And I felt so honored for you to ask me to be a part of it, to create a poem. That you had an event at the Freedom House.
That was the first year.
That was the first year. And so as a part of my last question to you, we have had the privilege to exhibit together in several exhibitions, and another privilege that we have had and that we also share is you longer than me are Black women that are art commissioners. You're an art commissioner of the city of Boston, and me, I'm with the state level as a commissioner. And I just want to ask you, for the city of Boston, and what that really means to you as a creative city, what dimensions of your vision has this official designated post helped you to realize in your work? What has it meant to you?
Well, I think I'm participating in the Art Commission as a citizen, as a Black citizen of Boston, who understands that the landscape has not represented the lives, the work, the sacrifices of my ancestors. And as well, it hasn't represented the indigenous people that have been a part of my community growing up. We grew up with the Wampanoags in Roxbury. We were all together, and also Latin Americans. So being on the commission, there's something about being in the room. You're being in the room where decisions are being made, where questions are being asked. And the thing is, your questions aren't like anyone else's. And your questions reveal new ways of looking at and thinking about things. So to me, being on the Art Commission has given me an opportunity to realize that my questions are powerful.
Yes, they are.
Okay? I know things about the city of Boston that nobody else on the commission knows. I'm not going to give any examples because, but you understand with the work that you're doing with the state that we have a unique perspective and position in the city as Black women. And when we bring that to the table, it elevates the project.
Yes, it does.
So I've also encouraged my artist friends, put in proposals. Even if you don't get the first one, you learn. And before you know it, we're going to have quality proposals that are going to be installed in the landscape of Boston so that our grandchildren will understand the history and be proud to be from here.
Well, Ekua, if your art could talk back to you, I'm sure it would have more powerful things to say than we were able to share in this brief moment. But we want to thank you for bringing your very transparent feelings about your work and fact about your work to us as subscribers to this newspaper. And I just want to say that in recognizing your work with the community in the Spark Mobile, as many of us know you,
Yeah.
that I call you Ekua the Spark.
Oh, I like that.
So with that, thank you so much for this thrilling interview.
Well, thank you for the interview, and I just want to say a few words about the Bay State Banner and the arts community. If it wasn't for the banner, maybe I'm not supposed to say this, none of us would have ink articles about our work. It was through the banner that we were seen, documented, and recorded. So I just want to say that. And thank you so much. It's been great spending this time with you.
Thank you.